Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a fraternal Charles Coulombe.
Fraternal?
Fraternal, yeah.
Fraternal?
Fraternal, yes.
It'd be like the Elks Lodge, the Freemasons, the
Exactly.
Rotary, Kiwanis, all that stuff?
A little more.
The Knights of Pythias?
Closer.
The American Legion?
No. Now you're colder.
Okay. Catholic Daughters of the Americas?
I don't know.
Daughters of Isabella?
No.
Daughters of the American Revolution?
Wow, you're getting exotic now.
Holland Dames?
No. Knights of Columbus.
What about them?
They have occupied a lot of space in your mind recently, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not mistaken. Now, mind you, I have a Knight of Columbus, 4th degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, patriotism degree. And I'm a Knight of Peter Claver, only 3rd degree.
They do 4 degrees as well?
They do.
Okay.
But it's much more exclusive than the Knights of Columbus. You can tell by the fact that I'm a 4th degree Knight of Columbus, not a 4th degree Knight of Peter Claver.
It makes sense.
Yeah. They have much higher standards than the Knights of Peter Claver, apparently.
Apparently.
Because you're right, I'm not happy.
Would you like to opine on the matter?
Opine or pine? I could pine away over it. But
I do both.
Now, mind you, watching me pine away might not be that exciting a proposition. I can just sit here pining away. Would you like me to go into the opine part now?
Go, you can go, yeah.
All right. Because I'm ready to pine away at any moment. So you just give the word and I'll leave. All right, well, no, I really am very annoyed, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not kidding. I really am. I'm so annoyed right now I can't see straight. I know you're asking why is that. I'll tell you. Firstly, before I say anything else, let me preface my remarks. I love the Knights of Columbus. I really do. It's not just because I'm 4th degree. It's because, as you can guess from my name, Coulombe, the legend of the family is there was some sort of short-tail relations, or not descendants, of the great navigator. Beyond that, I love, everything about the Knights, what they've done, their accomplishments in World War I, the things they did to help the Catholic community when it was absolutely despised. The work of our great founder, Father McGivney, in putting the thing together. I love the color guards.
Yeah.
Which I had thought very seriously of joining up until 3 years ago. I'll tell you why I didn't later. I love the Knights of Columbus as the lay arm, in a sense, of the church, and as one of the few things in American Catholic life that had not been fatally disrupted after Vatican II.
Yeah.
Because despite everything, the Knights soldiered on. Now, mind you, that isn't to say that the Knights didn't have certain limitations, which were structural. The Knights would never, ever, ever go against the hierarchy. But that's not what they were made for. You might as well get upset at the National Association of Ballerinas for not having aviation classes.
Yeah.
It's just not what they're about.
Right.
Very, very telling case here in California about 25, 30 years ago, when the then Archbishop and not yet Cardinal Roger Mahony wrote a letter with no election in sight except a vacancy for a red hat, oddly enough. He wrote a letter in which he said Catholics could not vote for a pro-abortion candidate. It was a very fine letter, by the way. Can't take that away from him. But the state of California, Knights of Columbus, decided that this was a covert signal to throw Congressman Roybal out of the order. Because next to Father Robert Dryden, S.J., he had the highest pro-abort record in Congress. The Jesuits will always beat out laymen in anything. So what should happen? But that they did. They moved to dump him. And then Archbishop Mahony personally intervened to keep him in. Now, since then, I've had people say, well, they should have defied the Archbishop, blah, blah. Never going to happen. And if you expect that from them, you'll always be disappointed. But what they did very well. On the local level, sometimes on the state level, but particularly the local level, the Knights have just been extraordinary, both in terms of looking after their own, in terms of doing things for veterans, for education. I'm very proud, or at least I was, to be a Knight of Columbus.
Yeah.
Now, why am I annoyed now? Well, where do I start? I began to be a little bit watchful when the initiation of the Knights was altered. Made, what's the word? Not mandatory, but voluntary. You could become a Knight just by watching a half-hour video.
Yeah.
That bothered me a lot because I was initiated with the old ceremony. Of course, I can't tell you what it is until January 1st, I guess. I wonder if everything, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I wonder if everything becomes open to the public. I mean, everything that did happen becomes open to the public after the 1st of January.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, at any rate, it was a very impressive ceremony. It certainly reinforced the Catholic faith. I can't go into any detail, of course, but it was a very good thing. And then later I had the second and third degrees, and they were very good. I had the second degree out here. I had the third degree in Connecticut. They were both very, very, very impressive. And then the fourth degree in California. All right. So all was well in this best of all possible worlds. As I say, about 3 years ago, after I became fourth degree, I began seriously considering maybe I should go to the color guard. But then something very strange happened. The strange thing that happened was that the order came from on high, the body formerly called Supreme. I say formally, they still call themselves that, but I prefer to call them corporate for reasons that'll be obvious momentarily. They decided that we were going to get rid of the uniform that we'd had since the 40s, which has become so identified with the Knights, and replace it with this sort of strange leather jacket and beret ensemble. I had several problems with it. Firstly, apart from getting rid of the uniform, which was so much a part of the ethos of the Knights. Beyond that, in Canada, the new uniform looks like the Royal Canadian Legion's uniform.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, that's great if you fought in the Canadian Army or the Canadian Navy. That's great. But if you didn't, it looks kind of weird.
Yeah.
And the second problem I had, too, is that having been a veteran of the Boy Scouts when they introduced berets, I know something about Americans and berets. Don't. You get away with it in the Army where you've got the control of them and you can make them learn how to put on a beret properly.
Yeah.
But for the most part, any voluntary group, you get a bunch of Americans wearing berets, no two of them will look alike.
I see.
I can't help myself. I'm French. I touch a beret, it's perfect. And I'm not boasting. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But so when I was a scout, my beret was always tip-top. At the National Jamboree back in 73, I remember a group of Canadian scouts came up to me and they said, "You must be Canadian." I said, "Why is that?" They said, "You're the only American we've seen wearing his beret properly."
Interesting.
Well, it's in the blood. Anyway, forget that. The point I'm making is that was bad enough because it came out of nowhere. Supreme said it will be this and such, and no one had there was nothing.
Yeah.
And mind you, a lot of people put out a lot of money to get those uniforms, and poof, it's worthless. And those who had a problem with it, Supreme dealt with very nastily. People were thrown out and so forth. What's the result? Color corps have collapsed. Fourth degree assemblies have collapsed all across this great land of ours. And the other thing that I must say is that supposedly it was done after consultation, but nobody knows with whom they consulted.
Yeah.
Now, supposedly it's to attract younger people. Well, I've heard all this stuff before. Remember how the guitars were going to bring the younger people?
Yeah.
Well, if by younger people you mean someone who's older than I am with white hair and is really rocking to the mamas and papas, well, yeah. But if you're talking about anyone whose brain is not frozen in 1968, no. Because you see, young people, ladies and gentlemen, for the most part, aren't interested in anything. Aren't interested in anything like organizations. Those who are tend to want organizations that stand for what they stand for, that are not changing according to everyday fashion. They are seeking permanence. And the worst way to accommodate people like that is to offer them more of the same crap they're trying to get away from. It's not smart. If the last thing you want is chocolate, and you come to me and you say you're hungry, well, how about this chocolate? No, I don't think so. I've had enough chocolate. Do you have any real food? All right, well, that was bad enough. And it convinced me I wasn't going to the color guard. Although I could probably, if Supreme want to hire me as a beret teacher for cash, I won't do it as a volunteer, but they can hire me as a paid beret teacher.
Okay.
I'm willing to do that.
Good.
Yeah. Mind you, my fees are high, and I charge per head, literally.
Wow.
See? They better watch out. However, the next thing, and the funny thing was, my source, I won't tell you who he is, he's concealed somewhere in Supreme in New Haven. I won't tell you who or what he is, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want him rooted out like a hedgehog. His code name, Diana Ross. Can you guess why?
The Supremes?
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, I just thought I'd say that.
That's
anyway.
Great. Yeah.
So Diana, that's what we'll call him. Diana told me that they were going to be doing this uniform thing several months before it was announced. And I couldn't believe it. I said, you've got to be joking. No. Diana was right. So then about, 2 or 3 months ago, Diana says to me, you know what? They're going to get rid of the degrees and the secrecy. I said, what? Yep. What's going to happen is you're going to have a single ceremony. They'll bring you into the KFC. You can bring your kids to see it. And that'll be it. They'll keep 4th degree for the moment. So that's what Diana told me. Now, as recently as 2 weeks ago, I mentioned this on my Facebook account, and a number of people told me that can't be true. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, I have a document here, and it's a real document because it's online. Not this phony printed stuff old people like you going for. This is a letter from a gentleman, Brother Knight, called Gary McCune or McKeown or something, the state deputy for the Connecticut State Council Knights of Columbus, to the Knights of the Connecticut State Council of the Knights of Columbus, dated December 14th, 2019. Now, by the way, you might be of the misapprehension that the Connecticut Council is not important. You're wrong. Because New Haven, Connecticut is the center of our order. It is where the thing was founded. It's where the Venerable Michael McGivney's tomb is at St. Mary's, New Haven, and in the basement of which the order was founded. All right. I'm going to read what he writes. If you have any observations, feel free to make them.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want this to be a monologue. I want it to be dialogue and open and above board. I don't want any secrecy. So if you've got feelings you need to share, I want them to be brought out into the open.
Okay.
I don't want you to hold back.
I won't hold back.
Okay. Brother Knights, as times have changed, apparently grammar is kind of a problem, but anyway, as times have changed, so must we change. I do not mean we need to change our principles or values, but we must change to keep up with the world. The world is moving faster than ever now, and so must we, and this includes our ceremonies. As a husband and a father, one of the last things I want to do is spend time away from my family, and I don't want to keep secrets from them either. If I were to join the Knights of Columbus today, I could say with a lot of confidence that spending a Sunday in the fall or spring away from my family in order to go through a 2nd and 3rd degree would not be high on my list of priorities. And if I did, I would have to keep it a secret. Imagine your wife and daughter going out on a Sunday for 6 to 7 hours, and when they return, they tell you that what they did was a secret. How would you react? I might get tuition in English grammar, I think. Anyway, these issues were roadblocks in getting members to complete their journey towards knighthood. The new exemplification removes those roadblocks with the combining of all 3 degrees into one exemplification. The new exemplification, as you will see, is a half-hour long, and it still impresses the importance of our first 3 principles: charity, unity, and fraternity. With the secrecy removed, it allows you to invite your family to attend with you and watch you become a Knight of Columbus. Yes, we are fraternal, but we are also a family organization, and invite our families to be part of every other aspect of the order, so why not the exemplification as well? Then the rest of it is about the implementation of the thing, so I think we can skip that. What I want to call your attention to is the reasoning involved. We'll leave the grammar alone. The world is moving faster than ever now, and so must we. Well, you know, I can hear my dad's voice. If everybody else jumped off a bridge, would you? The proper response to which is, not again. It's not as though we haven't heard this kind of reasoning before, in and out of the church. Now, as far as keeping secrets and all this, how do I put this? He is basically, and I'm sure none of this is conscious, I'm sure he's a very nice person. I'm sure he means well. I'm sure that he's as dedicated to all that's good and true and noble and wonderful as anybody else. I'm sure he's forthright for Mom, the flag, and apple pie. Absolutely. I have no doubt of this. But I do think he is severely mistaken. Because what is basically being said is that the order has been wrong all these years. That's really what's being said.
No, he's saying that the world was different back then, and so that our old version of the Knights was appropriate then, but now the world is different, and so now the Knights have to change accordingly. We have to be able to adapt.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's try this one on for size. All of these decisions, including the uniform, were made in secret. They were made without major consultation. They were made without any input from the members. So if we're going to get rid of secrecy, let's do it across the board. Who's responsible for these views, and why aren't they given over to the membership to approve? I can't tell you about the 4th degree. He's only 3rd degree. But I can tell you it's the patriotic degree. And what?
What? No.
You're only 3rd degree.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can't share secrets with you.
Oh, that's fine.
Maybe I should.
But they ain't going to make 3rd degrees anymore pretty soon. I'm going to be an elite breed.
You're gonna be like a passenger pigeon.
I'm gonna be like a $2 bill.
Like a dodo
You can't
bird.
get me anymore. I'm a collector's item.
You're a collector's item.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say you be a collector's item, all right. Tell you what, I gotta send you to a cabinet of curiosities. That's what I'm gonna do. No, but no, seriously, based upon what does he say this? Now he says, well, he wouldn't do secrecy, etc., etc. All right, then you know what? Stop doing the Knights of Columbus. Stay home with your family. If you don't like the way an organization is, you leave it, or you don't join it. It's that simple.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah,
this is just crazy. And I now, I do have some predictions, however. After all, I'm a disciple of Criswell. What good would life be without predictions? I suspect. Now, this does not come from Diana. This is entirely my speculation, ladies and gentlemen. So I could be wrong. Diana has not proven her itself wrong yet. So my prediction is that all of the elements of the order, the fraternal order, will be eventually slowly sloughed off, And like things like the Foresters, which were the ancient order of Foresters and now Foresters Financial, the KFC will become a purely insurance/financial thing. Now, I believe there's also a good chance they'll get rid of the name Columbus because it gets in the way of profits, kind of like uniforms that are funny and degrees and stuff. Anything that gets in the way of profit will go, I think. So they may call it the Knights of Unity. Now that's a name I get from Diana. And if they do that, the question is, what do they stand for? I have to say I've been down this road before with the Boy Scouts of America. Oh, I'm sorry, Scouting BSA, my mistake. I don't like saying this, ladies and gentlemen. If there's anybody from Supreme or corporate, as you may prefer to be called, who hear this and are getting upset at me, don't bother. Don't bother getting upset. Instead, ask yourself why you're doing this. Ask yourself where it's going to end up. Honestly, I really am only the messenger because I hear from Knights all the time, not just around the country, but in Canada and the Philippines, the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, Poland. Can you imagine we have Knights of Columbus in Poland?
Yeah.
I always thought it was kind of strange expanding outside North America, but that's just me. Anyway, so you guys there in corporate, if any of you are listening, don't presume to get annoyed at me. Instead, live up to what you claim are your own standards and break open the system. How about this? How about you make the Supreme Knightship electable by the general run of the membership, out of the hands of the board of the board, and elected by the generality of the membership. How about that? That would be a big change too, and very much in keeping with the way things are going today. You see, brothers of corporate or Supreme or whatever you want to be called now, the world is changing. The idea of leadership being conducted secretly in back rooms, that just won't fly anymore. If you really believe what you've said with regard to the uniforms and the new exemplification, if you believe that, and you must, I would be the last person to think you could possibly be hypocritical, then from now on, when Brother Anderson steps down as Supreme Knight, the next Supreme Knight will be elected by the membership, as will the board, as will everybody in Supreme. I'm sure you're not hypocrites, so I believe that's probably what's really going to happen.
Okay.
Diana didn't tell me that, though.
I don't want to belabor this point too much, or this topic too much more, but what I pity too, honestly, I've seen other podcasts on this, and with people getting kicked out of Knights of Columbus and all this other stuff, who really gets hit are the poor field agents.
Oh yeah,
because they lose insurance.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure. And of course, the other thing too, the field agents, you're talking about a thankless job.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them do fairly well at it financially, but my gosh, the amount of work they have to do.
It's tough.
Yeah, no, and I'm not being sarcastic when I say my heart really goes out to the field agents.
Yeah.
And, and not just them. I mean, it goes out to all the people who have spent so much time learning the ceremonies.
That too.
Them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
the robes. None of that stuff.
When I was going through it, I was like, how is this? I don't want to say,
And see, the thing is, why they memorized it? They memorized it because they really believed in it. See, these ceremonies were not just things that morons sitting in a room made up. These things were gradually developed over a long period of time. They were meant to exemplify the faith, fraternalism, and, for want of a better word, patriotism.
And the people who delivered it, I felt like they were heroes in a sense that they would dedicate that much time.
Of course.
They were examples. Wow, this guy is amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, and they were. And it's the same with the Bloody Color Corps.
Yeah, that too.
People don't realize, you look at how long they would stand, motionless, clutching their swords.
Yeah.
I mean, people will make fun and all that. Some, the moron people to whom we should always cater because, they mean stuff. I mean, how many people who were turned off by the uniform would have gone to the Knights of Columbus anyway?
Yeah.
This is the crazy part. Oh, if it weren't for the uniform, I'd be a knight. No.
Yeah.
Similarly, nobody would be kept from the Knights by the degree structure. All right? That's not what would keep them out. The kind of people who didn't go into the Knights were people who had other things they want to do. And it doesn't matter what you change.
The speculation from my council, at least, is they're doing this in part because, the color corps is unraveling, so we need more people who are able to jump up to the color corps immediately.
Except they won't. And they don't.
Yeah. But
I mean, we have a wonderful idea in French, the idée fausse claire, the clear false idea. It makes perfect sense. It's very logical. It's very lovely reasoning. Only one itsy bitsy problem. Can you guess what that is?
What?
It's not true. It's not true. little dinky winky problem. And the thing is, especially because these decisions have not been taken in consultation with the membership, really, despite what they've said, I don't think corporate is aware of the reality on the ground. Or perhaps it is and doesn't care. I don't know. But the cavalier way in which people have been thrown out of the order over the past couple of years, it's just, you don't do that in a volunteer order anyway, especially if you claim to be having trouble with membership.
Yeah.
How does it benefit you to expel people, on the one hand, en masse, and on the other, whine that you're not getting enough people in? Stop and think for a second. Let's say that tomorrow, corporate expelled me from the order, and you, because you were bad.
Yeah.
They'd expel me because I'm loud and annoying, but you just because you're bad on general principles.
Then I join the men's club, and I do all the stuff through the men's club.
Beyond that, this podcast of ours is seen around the world.
Yeah.
How many people, knowing that we were expelled, would want to join the Knights of Columbus?
I don't know.
Now reduce this to a more manageable and more typical example. So your Uncle Roderick, longtime member of the Color Corps, he decides he's still going to keep wearing the $500 worth of clothing he bought.
Yeah.
And so do his friends, Seamus, Antonio, and Juan, the four-man Color Corps of the Hialeah Council.
Yeah.
So they keep turning out, not at Knights of Columbus functions, but at private funerals, weddings, this sort of thing. And for whatever reason, state council gets a hold of it, and they expel them. Okay. Do you think anybody who knows any of those men are going to want to go to the Knights of Columbus?
No.
What are they going to think of them, do you think?
It's a dying organization.
Not just a dying organization, but a nasty one.
It's, yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to belong to a dying organization.
That's true.
It's one thing to belong to a dying, nasty organization.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, it's not just no, it's hell no. I mean, I have seen organizations come back from the brink. I am a happy member of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club. And when our current president took over, the club was on its way out. It'd been going since the 20s, and it had a date with death.
Yeah.
But this lady, I don't mind saying, this lady was elected president. Yeah. She turned the thing around. Completely. And the best part is that the old members, who basically elected her as a last gasp, instead of fighting it, they went along. And now, the ones who are still alive anyway, are absolute pillars of the club. But there are also all these new people. It's great. Well, it doesn't have to die.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't have to. And that's why I would suggest to all of you out there who are Knights, rather than watching this podcast and quitting in disgust, insist on accountability.
Our council, the council, actually, you just joined our council.
I
did. Yeah. Got Charles in our council now. Okay, true. But we're going to be formally issuing a letter of protest on the degree change. So I encourage all the councils to let Supreme know, because it's not too late.
No.
We're doing this because we love the Knights.
And we love Father McGivney.
And we love Father McGivney.
And that, and you know, any knight who has a problem with that, from the lowest level all the way up to corporate or supreme or corporate, which is it?
I know you're hammering this point home that they're acting more like a corporate than supreme.
Yeah,
fair enough. Fair point.
It's true. I mean, ask Diana Ross.
I know, from the Supremes. Yeah.
But anyway, that I will say, they might as well know. I once toured Supreme myself, and I kept looking in corners and so forth. And the member of Supreme was showing me around and said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "Diana Ross." He laughed very hard.
Yeah, it's a funny joke.
Yeah, well, it is when you tell it once.
Yeah.
Somehow when you keep using it as a leitmotif, as I've done, it's not as funny.
Yeah, it loses a little bit each time.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, but you know what? The Knights of Columbus are my only pet peeve right now.
Oh, yeah, we've got other things. Okay.
We sure do. By the way, this is a long holiday segment.
Yeah, we missed last week, so we're making up for it and more.
And boy, will you be sorry. I mean, yeah, anyway, here it is. Are you ready?
Ready.
The President of the United States of America. Dun 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 dun. Anyway, is being impeached. Has been impeached.
Has been, yeah, I was going to say.
Well, it's happening.
Everybody's celebrating. I don't understand. He's still president, though.
Well, okay. You want me to explain how it works?
No, I was making a joke because it was strange because everyone was celebrating on Twitter. I'm like, okay, well, he's still president and he's going to continue to be president. Oh. So good job. I congratulations, I guess.
Glad you're happy.
Yeah.
You keep drinking that Chickasaw joy juice and see what happens.
Yeah.
No, first and foremost, having lived through another impeachment process, Mr. Clinton's.
Yeah.
I can tell you, and also knowing my history and stuff, the problem with this impeachment, to begin with, is that when generally you've got an impeachment, you've got a proved problem. In other words, Mr. Clinton had committed perjury. There really wasn't a question of that. The question was it sufficiently grave as to, require him to be removed from power?
Yeah.
Well, the House presented the impeachment. The Senate had the trial, and they acquitted him. Now, that didn't mean he wasn't guilty. It meant that it was not sufficiently dreadful to remove him from office.
Yeah.
So you have these two things that have been brought against the Trumpster. One is abuse of power, which we'll talk about in a minute. The other is obstruction of Congress.
Okay.
Nobody, you don't know. Nobody does. No one knows.
Okay.
Basically, he instructed his people not to cooperate with a congressional investigation, which falls within the executive purview.
Okay.
That's Obama, God knows, he did it.
Yeah.
I mean, if the same standard had been applied to Mr. Obama, we'd have been in the same boat 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not, because it's always different for a Democrat.
Yeah.
Always. Unless he's Clinton and has committed perjury. But then he gets off.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, where we are at right now is a very, very strange place because the Trumpster wants a trial in the Senate.
Yeah.
Now the Democrats are beginning to realize that would not work very well for them. See, again, let's step back a little bit. Impeachment is not supposed to be a political process. Now, it's hard for us to realize that now because we're so used to everything being political.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, I think from the very beginning, the President of the United States, any president, has an impossible job. And I say it's impossible because he has three roles. On the one hand, he is supposed to be the head of state and head of government, leader of all the people.
Yeah.
In a uniquely American way, he's supposed to be high priest of the national cultus, the national faith. And thirdly, he's supposed to be the leader of his party.
Yeah.
Now, I would argue that there's always been a tension between that last role and the first two.
Of course.
Prior presidents, to a greater or lesser degree, wrestled with it. Sometimes some were better than others. But nevertheless, there was, even when I was young, there was the idea that when a man was president, you still dealt with respect.
Of course.
You hated his stinking guts when he ran for office. But now he's the president of the United States, so there's some things you don't say about him.
Right.
and contrariwise, you also expected a certain level of behavior from it.
Yeah.
Now, where that began to crumble, in my humble estimation, was actually under dear old President Nixon.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
I've talked about this before.
Yes.
And it wasn't Watergate.
Right.
It was the revelation that he had a potty mouth. Now, that seems like a small thing today, because everybody's got a potty mouth. I mean, I hear conversations from children on the bus. In my day, I'd have been able to spank them.
Of course.
But once upon a time in America, back when we were a country, and as opposed to a bordello or whatever we are now, you didn't behave that way in public. And the idea that the president had such a foul mouth was a shock. And of course, we already have the free speech movement and all that underway, and this added impetus to it. But from that time, with a kind of a brief 8-year hiatus under President Reagan, the behavior of presidents has been going downhill with the population at large. I mean, they do reflect us. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
There's that consolation. When you look at the Trumpster and you find his behavior vulgar, okay, but if you didn't know who he was and you saw him in a restaurant.
Exactly. See, I always make this point, like, he's one of us.
Yeah.
So why don't you hold society to the same standard? You don't even have that idea. These people aren't even seeking to change this behavior that they despise from the president when in society. They don't mind it. They don't bat an eye.
No, well, mutatis mutandis, it's like it is with the royals. You always have people making fun of their behavior when increasingly they reflect their subjects.
Yeah.
Especially in marital behavior.
Of course.
If you've got a problem with the marriages and the royal family, how about the 50% divorce rate?
Exactly.
Well, we expect better from them than we'll take from ourselves. And if they actually do better, well, then they're snooty.
Yeah.
You can't win. Anyway, so this guy is now going to be impeached in a frankly political process. The Democrats have been furious at him for winning since he got in. He could walk on water, and they would say, obviously, the water was polluted. So, and for myself, I don't like the guy, frankly, but then I grew up watching his antics in Spy magazine in the 80s. So you do that, and you'll always have a hard time respecting him. But having said that, he has done more than any president I've ever lived under to try to fulfill his campaign promises, number one.
Yeah.
Which is he's made some really good judicial choices. He's endorsed the whole gay thing, which I don't like. But he has been more pro-life, certainly, than Obama. Of course, that doesn't mean much. We might, through after Miss Ginsburg retires, presuming he gets back a second time, we might have a sufficiently pro-life court to knock down Roe v. Wade, in which case, of course, suddenly we're back to fighting the pro-life fight in the state level.
Yeah.
But that's still better than having abortion consecrated by the Constitution.
Right.
So anyway, where I'm going with all this, there's a point, is that the Democrats don't really have anything going for them except infanticide, more sodomy, and communism. That's all they've got to show. And so their nominee material, it looks like something out of a circus sideshow. You've got the pinhead, the bearded lady, the Siamese twin, all by himself. Being a single Siamese twin must be tough. Anyway, point is, they don't really have anything. So the idea is, okay, we'll have this whole wonderful impeachment process, and that'll get whoever we nominate in. But I suspect it's going to backfire on them. And what do I mean by backfire? Well, already they're moonwalking away from doing the Senate trial.
Yeah.
Now, the reason for that, I think, then the reason why the president wants a nice long Senate trial is because it would give him the chance in a big way to exonerate himself. And not just exonerate himself, but expose everything the Biden's father and son did.
Yeah.
And given that Biden is the best guy they've got in terms of trying to defeat him, I mean, that by itself is a sad story. But,
yeah.
This is our best. Little Herman here. Well, little Herman, he's only got one arm. Yeah, I know, but what he can do with that remaining arm. Anyway, but he's a pinhead. Well, yes, but what thoughts he does have are really neat. He's blind. Well, that's true, but boy, can he hear.
Okay, Charles.
You gave me the idea.
We got it.
You don't like Little Herman.
I don't like you disparaging Little Herman for his disabilities.
Well, that's true. I apologize. He has worked here a long time. Anyway, and you ought to be congratulated for putting him on the Finance Council.
Thank you.
Anyway, aren't too many blind people who can do that, But at any rate, all joking aside, just for 3 seconds and no more. So here we are in a position where the Democrats have painted themselves into a bad corner.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, well, we're not going to send it to the Senate unless we can determine the procedure.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's not how that works. Never, ever, ever in the 2 impeachments we had before has the House of Representatives presumed to dictate to the Senate how they're going to run a trial. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
But see, again, thinking of von Kuhn-Ledin, who we spoke of in the pre-show, stupidity does walk the earth. And never has it been so apparent as now. So I've said they've made a big mistake. What does that mean? I'll tell you what I think it means. And again, I could be wrong. I'm not Criswell, despite having known him. I predict that if the economy does not go south between now and then, not only will the Trumpster be reelected, but the Republicans will get control of the House. But it's worse than that, because it won't be like the last Republican House, which had a mind of its own. This Republican House will exist purely because of riding on his coattails.
Okay.
Now, stop and think about what that's going to mean for our Democratic friends. If he has a House that's much more subservient to him than the past Republican House was, and he chooses Miss Ginsburg's replacement, Madam Justice Ginsburg's replacement.
Yeah.
He basically will have a lock on all 3 branches of government.
Yeah.
And the reason boils down to 2 words: Nancy Pelosi. This was her strategy, and if it goes the way I suspect it will be entirely to her credit.
Well, that's how it works nowadays, right? Alyssa Milano, right? She's a huge contribution to the pro-life movement, right? She says everyone should abstain and be chaste until women's rights, also known as abortion, gets legalized in I forgot what was it, Georgia? Or I forgot what state, but.
God bless Alyssa Milano.
God bless Alyssa Milano.
And you know what? I've joined her deal.
Yeah.
I don't even want to meet her.
Yeah.
Forget anything deeper.
Yeah.
I don't even want to meet the lady because I'm joining her in this.
There you go.
All right.
So, it'll be interesting how the history books write these things.
Oh, gosh. So anyway, that was the second. Let's move on. There is a third.
Yeah.
Now, so far, we have been obsessing over American issues. The Knights of Columbus, the impeachment. You know what? We've got to set our sights further. I'm tired of our restricting ourselves, typical Americans, us, today. It's all been about, the United States does this. Half the audience out there is overseas. More than half. I mean, you get constant things from all over the world complaining that you don't send any books. No, wait, let me rephrase. The point is, you get, though, a lot of constant correspondence and traffic from beyond the sacred borders of our God-protected realm. So this part is for you.
Okay.
You ready?
Ready.
Brexit.
What's that?
What's Brexit?
Yeah.
Well, it's this new hair product.
Is it good?
Oh.
Wow, it looks good.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
You'd never know this was a toupee, would you?
Wow, look at that shine and bounce.
Yep. It's all through Brexit. New Brexit. All right, fine. Brexit's not real. When do you come up with this stuff?
I don't know.
Brexit is not a hair product. Thank you very much. Gosh. You see what I go through? Anyway. Brexit means Britain exit.
Oh, okay, like J-Lo. Like Jennifer Lopez.
Yes, like J-Lo.
It combines...
Yeah, it combines 2 words. Yeah. It means Britain exit. It means you can leave Britain by... No, it doesn't mean that.
Oh, okay.
It's not exits from Britain. It's Britain exiting The European Union.
Got it,
Britain,
yeah.
exit, Brexit.
Yeah, got it now.
So
Yeah.
we're on this? All right.
We're on this.
Okay, great. Well, Brexit, as you know, was the major issue in the last British election. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, there's a country north of Europe, or northwest, called the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So-called because it's made up of three constituent kingdoms. England, Scotland, and what's left of Ireland under British rule, Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Associated with it is the fabulous Principality of Wales, the Isle of Man, the bailiwicks of Jersey and Guernsey, and the British Channel, the British Channel, English Channel, and in little colonies dumped around the world, very tiny ones. But the United Kingdom is a monarchy, sort of figurehead.
Okay.
And its queen, Elizabeth II, now reigning since 1952, she is not just queen of Great Britain. She's queen of several other countries, three of which are big partners of ours. Canada, to the north, Australia, way down south, and New Zealand, which is near Australia.
Yeah.
All right. They have a little bit of a rivalry between them.
Yeah.
The New Zealanders think they're much more cultured than the Australians.
They are. They did Lord of the Rings.
Well, the Australians think the New Zealanders are stuck up.
Well, rightfully so, when you're superior.
You know, the New Zealand has two islands that are called, for your convenience, North Island and South Island.
That's smart.
Yeah. But you know what their joking nickname for Australia is?
What?
West Island.
Okay.
They have another joke in Kiwi land, which is, what do you call a cultured Australian?
What?
A New Zealander. Anyway, can we not do this?
It's so fun, though.
It is, though. It is. Repeating everybody's prejudices, but we don't share them ourselves. Just throwing them out there. If you're a mixed group of Australians and New Zealanders watching this now, and you're now at each other's throats when you were getting along, we've done our job. No, seriously, gang. I've been to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, wonderful countries, but the Queen is queen of each of them separately. This is important to bear in mind, because it comes up later. All right. So the prime minister is the man who really runs each country. There's a separate prime minister for each one of them. The Queen's first minister nominally, but he controls the majority in Parliament. And so he and his party determine what happens. They pass the laws and, do stupid things like all governments do. In the name of the Queen, which is often an insult to the Queen, but there it is. Now, Bojo, as they call the Prime Minister of Britain, Boris Johnson, he has kind of a similar hairdo to President Trump's.
Yeah.
And some people wonder if they have the same hairstylist.
Makes sense.
If stylist is really the word we want. But at any rate, so the thing was that Brexit itself was kind of a prefiguring of the 2016 election, because everyone said Brexit's going to go down to defeat.
Yeah.
They had a plebiscite on it. Instead, it passed with a big majority. And it's like, how did that happen? We had our election, and the Trumpster was elected. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, the big issue in this last election with the British, the Conservative Party, at least Bojo, having purged the anti-Brexit members in the Parliament to a great degree, he campaigned in favor of Brexit, and he won an overwhelming majority, which nobody predicted, except maybe him.
Yeah.
Now, this I see as a positive development. The Conservative Party really aren't conservative in any meaningful sense, any more than the Republican Party, really. But, unless in some ways, it was the Conservatives, quote unquote, under David Cameron that brought in gay marriage, kind of like the good Catholic judge Anthony Kennedy brought it in here.
Yeah.
But I think it was a Republican appointee too, so that makes it even better. But having said all that, they got an overwhelming majority, the Tories did. The Labour has been absolutely smacked. And now things are beaming full speed ahead for another acronym,
What?
CANZOK.
Okay. What is that?
I can't just drop it and leave it there. I have to explain.
Yes.
Christmas magic?
No, okay, that's a pre-show thing. No Christmas magic. Charles has been using Christmas magic to get himself out of a corner.
Yeah, whenever I talk myself into a corner today, because it's a Christmas episode, today I say Christmas magic, which is supposed to let me out.
And just poof, you're out.
But
Yeah.
apparently not with this.
You can invoke Christmas magic if you want.
Yeah, but they should know what CANZOK means.
Okay.
All right, so I won't use it.
Yeah.
But I may later.
Okay.
You back me into a corner and I'm going to poof like that.
And then I'll call you an occultist.
Ooh.
Because you're using magic.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, good serve. All right.
Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah.
All right.
See?
Here's... Hanging around Radtrans helps. Anyway, all right. CANZOK is an acronym, and it stands for Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom. CANZOK. And it's the idea, in the wake of Britain leaving the European Union, for there to be a free trade, free travel zone between Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
Okay.
Which would mean basically that if you're an Australian, you can move to the UK without going through any immigration stuff, sit there, and after a certain amount of time to be determined, you can just work. And that'd be that. In other words, eventually, the four countries would be as tightly connected as the European Union is with each other.
Okay.
And this is an interesting scheme for a lot of reasons. One, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada are the way they are because of historical developments. They were part of the British Empire. They were settled by British and others under the British aegis, except, of course, for the French Canadians, who, I'm happy to say, were already in Canada. We were defeated, but nevertheless, we are the pre-British inhabitants of the Great Dominion. But nevertheless, Canada itself was sort of an interesting partnership between the wonderful French Canadians and the Loyalists who fled the United States after the Revolution.
Yeah.
That was the foundation of Anglo-Canada. Now, at any rate, when the British Empire was a going concern, there was an idea brooded about that got a certain amount of traction, but in the end didn't go anywhere. Imperial Federation. And it was the idea that the settler colonies, the three countries I mentioned, plus South Africa, would unite integrally with Britain with a common parliament because they already had a common sovereign.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know about a common parliament in this go-around, but it is kind of a revival of the Imperial Federation idea. And I think it's very much the way forward for all three daughter countries because each of them are faced with a much larger neighbor.
Yeah.
And in grave danger of losing their identity. On the other hand, Britain can always use markets. It's the fifth largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
And before going into the European Union in 1972, Britain was very closely connected to Australia and Canada and New Zealand economically. When she went into the EU, this caused all sorts of annoyance and upset in the three countries, and it caused a certain amount of economic problem. Because, for instance, New Zealand lamb, which nowadays is eaten by trolls in Middle-earth, but I saw the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in those days, a huge chunk of it went to Britain. Then suddenly Britain's in the EU, it's getting their lamb from Europe.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
And that's just one item. So I think the emergence of a CANZOK trading bloc, which is reinforced by the similarities they have in their customs, their history, and so on, to say nothing of having the same queen. I think it's a wonderful thing. And I certainly hope for them that it comes to pass, because I do believe it'll be the best thing for the future of Britain, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. So I made my my other obsession. Oh, all right, I have a fourth.
Okay.
I have a fourth.
Sure.
Also dealing with the EU.
Okay.
And that is the budding solidarity and slow coming together of Central Europe. within the European Union.
Okay.
The reason being that Central Europe, you've heard the phrase European values?
No.
Well, it's big in Europe, oddly enough. The question is, what really is that? What does that mean? In Central Europe, Hungary, Slovakia, Czechia, Slovenia, Croatia, Poland, Romania, to some degree even Austria, that means basically Christianity. Family life, culture, stuff. But for the elites of Western Europe, if not for their hapless subjects, European values mean abortion, gay marriage, etc.
Yeah.
There's a basic dichotomy there. And all the while those Western European elites are talking about abortion and gay marriage and all the stuff that makes them who they are, our Muslim extremist friends are growing in might and annoyance, much to the annoyance of the subjects of said elites, while at the same time, people of, shall we say, varying degrees of niceness in Western Europe are gathering strength because they are willing to talk about the problem in a way that the governments aren't. So, Central Europe can provide shall we say, a counterbalance to said elites and maybe a bit of sanity.
Okay.
So, those are my 4 things. Knights of Columbus, impeachment, Kanzuk, Central Europe.
There you go. Very good.
All right.
Glad we got that covered.
We took a long time to do that, too.
Yeah, that was like the longest thing. Yeah, so probably because we're at the tail end of the Tumblr House Christmas party. So if you ever see one of those transitions that cut out, because Tyrone's coming in asking me something, or one of the secretaries just being outlandish or something like that. It's kind of crazy right now. So if you see that, know that's what's happening. Or if you hear something in the background, it's because of that.
It's a little problematic. Right now we're all drinking Zelda Nagel's eggnog.
Yeah.
And it's got 7 different kinds of booze in it. I don't know how it has any egg or nog in it, but it sure packs a punch.
Yeah. So...
Poor Zelda.
Tyrone, what do you want? What's going on?
Oh, no.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Gosh, wow, kind of crazy over here right now.
Okay. I don't think I'm not. All right, I don't want to question corporate judgment because that's not what I'm about.
Yeah, no, I know. Based on this episode, you're definitely not about that. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, having said that, do you think it was wise doing a recording session in the midst of the Christmas party?
Well, it seemed like a good thing at the time, but I guess, yeah,
all right,
not
fine.
Ideal.
No, never mind. All right, no, we're here now.
We're here now.
Counts. Yeah, we're here for you. And yeah, exactly. One for the home team. Where did I put that drink? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
This.
What do you got in there, Charles?
Well, it's Zelda's eggnog.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's
7 different kinds of booze.
A little too much for my taste.
You think so?
But yeah.
Why do you think they were able to do that whole thing from Turkey Lurkey Day on the desks? Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think they were part on? Sheer artistic talent? I don't think so.
Yeah, I know you're not hot on talent nowadays.
Not like that.
Okay, let's see. So we've got around 15 questions today. We're really trying to make up for the, skipping out on last week. I'm sorry about that.
Yes, we're very sorry about it.
So, but by the way, it's been a wild filming session. I don't know how long we took for the pre-show. It must have been like an hour or something.
No, pre-show went on forever.
It was wild. So again, if you become a patron today, it's $1 a month. You get access to basically honestly, it felt like a full episode.
It did. $1 a month?
$1 a month, yeah.
Just $1 a month?
It's insane, isn't it? What a deal.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I would put down that whiskey mug right this moment. Rush to your telephone and call. Oh, wait a minute. That's not how it works.
No, don't do it. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Forget the telephone.
Yeah, just use the internet and then, go to patreon.com/TumblrHouse.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Whew. That
Okay.
really fries the fleas, you know?
Yeah. So, okay, let's start the questions.
All right, questions. This is what you really come for. Let's hear it.
First question's from Waylon.
All right. Ooh, Waylon Jennings.
You always say this stuff.
Waylon Smith.
Yeah. I'm sure poor Waylon's sick of it because he always asks a lot of questions. Okay.
Well, if he's sick of it, why does he keep asking questions? Gotcha there, smart guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see? I know how to tease the truth out of these people.
Hello, Charles. Would you please explain the difference between socialism and communism?
You bet.
Please do so.
All right. Communism is when it's Marxism you don't like. Socialism is when it's Marxism you do like. No.
Wow.
No, that's way oversimplified. Well, socialism, there is no such thing as non-Marxist communism. There is such a thing as non-Marxist socialism. What's the difference? Well, these are very fluid definitions, but communism has generally been associated with a lot more state pressure, shall we say. In other words, in a communist country, the idea is that you'll do as you're told or else.
Yeah.
The notion is that in a merely socialist country, although the means of production may be somewhat socialized, perhaps medicine, perhaps this, perhaps that, there's nevertheless more personal freedom. That's the idea that was usually done when I was a kid, the difference between a communist country like Russia, so the Soviet Union, and a socialist country like Sweden or Britain. Now, there are other kinds of socialism, however, that are not Marxist. Now, what's Marxist, of course? Well, it's following the analysis of Karl Marx, which places the...
Wait, hold up. Tyrone, are you serious? Are you for real right now?
Why do you keep messing with Tyrone anyway? Leave him alone.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I mean, it's just...
the man has had a little bit of eggnog, maybe 6 or 8 glasses, and you're monitoring him like he's a kid. He's fine.
Yeah, just sometimes people in authority, they have like this win mentality, like they have to win. And it's just, sometimes it's out of control a little bit. So, it's one of the things we tolerate because he does such a good job.
And he's not a child.
99% of the time, he's fine.
I didn't see anything too bad with what he was doing. From what I could see.
Yeah, from what you can see, yeah.
Yeah, he looked, he's had a bit of eggnog, number one.
Yeah. And
I don't think you take that into account. He hasn't had that much, 6, 8 glasses maybe. And he's happy. I mean, the smile on his face just now, before you gave him that dressing down, I haven't seen him look that happy since the last Christmas party, actually.
Yeah, but I think he's going to be a little bit quieter. You just have to say, something, 13th floor.
Yeah, I know. Well, listen.
Make you do some janitorial services on the 13th floor.
Give him 2 more eggnogs, and I guarantee you there won't be any more things out of him.
Yeah.
Speaking of the 13th floor, you're going to go up there and spread some holiday cheer?
No, thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
We don't know which holiday, do we?
No.
They're celebrating something up there. I heard the drums.
So anyhow, as you're saying.
Anyway, as I was saying, what was I saying anyway?
Socialism and communism.
Socialism and communism. So, there are, however, other forms of socialism that aren't Marxist. Now, Karl Marx he was number one, he was an atheist and a complete materialist. But there have been religious sorts of socialism. Now, again, so we get down to weird definitions. You could almost say that monastic life is communist in the sense that everything's held in common. But it certainly is not atheist. It certainly is not Marxist. There was guild socialism, which sort of bled off into distributism. Even the early Labor Party was not actually Marxist per se. So, so to put this another way, all communists are Marxists, not all socialists are Marxists.
Okay, next question is from Covington.
All right. Was that a name or a place?
It's a name.
Okay.
There seems to be a subtly rising niche community of neopagans on the internet. Some of their claims in their attack on Christianity include that the God of the Hebrews, Yahweh, is in actuality a god or demon from the Canaanite pantheon whose worship eventually dominated the others, and that early Christian conversion efforts to the Germanic tribes included misrepresenting Christ as some great warlord and use the Germanic epic Heliod as evidence of this. Would Charles be so kind as to address these claims?
Yes. First, I would like those who make them to go to the 13th floor.
Why?
Yeah. That takes care of that next.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's garbage, like so much you'll hear today. The truth of the matter, it was not a Canaanite god. Okay, firstly, before we even go into that, modern Neopaganism, or Wicca, as it's often called, is an age-old religion going back to the 1920s. Imagined first by a lady called Margaret Murray. Its rituals were then confected by a man named Joe Gardner. It's all nonsense. It's anyone from that standpoint daring to critique anything and swallowing what they swallow, please.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, just right there, please. Now, having said all that, no, Yahweh was not a Canaanite god. As far as Heliod goes, you bet it's a wonderful work, and I recommend it highly. It is a retelling of the gospel through the prism, you might say, of Viking eyes, or Northern German eyes.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, our Lord appears as a sort of war hero, a sort of war leader like Beowulf.
Yeah.
And the apostles are his things. Now, well, that sounds strange to us, but see, we tend to rework Christ according to our standards. Netflix has him as a queer. No, I mean, that's how people are. You retell the gospel story according to your own lights. Our culture being gay, I mean, in the sense of happy, I meant. All right, pervy, if you prefer. Okay. Anyway, whatever you want to call it. Our culture being what it is, or that's what we produce. It's crap, but I mean, it's who we are. Anyway, that people, being strong and virile and warlike, saw Christ that way. In the Middle Ages, he was seen as the epitome of chivalry. Every people, every time, every culture sees Christ through their own prism. But it's not a deception any more than Netflix's is. I'm sure it's deeply sincere. About what, I don't know.
Right. We have a bunch of questions here from Brian.
Hey, Brian.
When is shopping on Sunday sinful?
Well, it's not essential, I would say.
That's a good question for this Christmas, because we've had a short Christmas season, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing some shopping on Sunday.
Yeah, and there, the question is that essential? Well, I don't know. See Great Aunt Gladys without any gift? I don't know.
And well, let's say if they work tomorrow, and
yeah, well, and I'm saying they work tomorrow. Christmas Eve is coming up.
Yeah.
And, the choice is shopping on Sunday or dealing with Great Aunt Gladys without a gift for her. Especially considering what she got you last year.
That's a tough call.
It's a very tough call. But that's called, are you ready for this?
Ready.
Prudential judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Charles, when, if ever, does a usurper and his line become legitimate? Is it not revolutionary to work to overthrow an established government? I do speak as someone who has legitimist leanings myself.
Well, the first thing you've got to bear in mind is that it would be a somewhat different question if bloodlines were the only thing that these issues involve. But outside of theory, in the real world, inevitably, in Europe anyway, I mean, I can't speak to non-Christian monarchies. But in Europe, traditionally, these things as they've emerged since the 17th century, the Jacobite issue in the British Isles, the Legitimists versus the Orleanistas in France, the Carlistas versus the Isabelinas in Spain, the Miguelistas in Portugal. It wasn't just a question about the bloodline. It was also a question of what kind of monarchy they were going to have.
Yeah.
In each of those cases I mentioned, the Catholic Church would have been restricted or banished entirely. The monarchy itself would either have been a real monarchy or the plaything of an oligarchy. In other words, there were much more important issues involved. I can't say, they were inextricably bound up with the question of dissent. Now, is it revolutionary? Well, no. If you are trying to reestablish an established order that has been itself overthrown, overthrowing what overthrew it is by no means a revolution.
Yeah.
To put this another way, you steal my wallet. I lay in wait to get it back from you. I manage. Is it theft? Stealing my wallet back. So.
Oh, well, that's true. Okay. Good metaphor.
You know, you took my wallet, I take it back. Am I being a thief? Officer, you don't understand. Well, yeah, but it's got his driver's license and credit cards in it. Well, yeah, but he took it out of my wallet, out of my pocket. He took it. Well, how did it get there? That's not important, officer. Arrest him. Okay. That's the way it would be today. Well, all right. You're going to press charges? You bet. Prosecute that man to the very end of the law. Imagine him daring to violate private property by stealing a wallet from my jacket. But it was my wallet. You just nicked it. That's not important. I had it. It's my wallet now because I had it and you took it.
Sorry, but wow. Okay.
There's your answer.
That seems like okay. Yeah. Let's go with that. All right, next question from Brian. Charles, could you please discuss how popular the Latin Mass is in various countries? From what I understand, the United States and France have the strongest traditional Catholic movements. But how is it doing in Poland, Spain, Ireland, Germany, Austria, England, South America, Africa, and the Philippines, and the Holy Land?
You have got to be joking, Brian.
Come on, Brian.
Do really? I look like a gazetteer?
Really? Okay.
I don't even know what
Do
to
what
say.
you will. Do what you will, Charles.
Anything I want?
Anything you want. Carte blanche.
Gil-galad was an elven king. Of him the harpers sadly sing. The last whose realm was fair and free between the mountains and the sea. His lance was long, his sword was keen, his shining helm from far was seen, and all the stars of heaven's field were mirrored on his silver shield. But where he dwelleth, none can say, for long ago he rode away, and into darkness fell his star, in Mordor, where the shadows are.
There you go.
You like that?
I like that.
All right. I will try to give you a serious answer, but I'm not going to give you a country-by-country breakdown. It's just, please, it's a little much to ask. And the answer is, it varies tremendously from country to country. In Poland, it's not that strong because the Novus Ordo was not that weird. Usually, the strength of traditionalism in a country is in direct proportion to how bad the aftermath of Vatican II was. The worse it was, the stronger the trads. The easier, the less annoying the clergy were, the weaker Tradismo is. Now, but England is an interesting exception because they always had what was called the Agatha Christie angle.
Yeah.
See, what happened was that Agatha Christie, a mystery writer, and a bunch of other non-Catholic, primarily, artists and writers got together and asked Paul VI for this privilege for the English Catholics.
Yeah. Because
it's a big part of Western culture.
Yeah.
Now, Paul VI, who was not one to listen to Catholics, was very much impressed by non-Catholics.
Yeah.
So he went along with the deal.
Good. We should do that more. We should hire non-Catholics for things.
Oh, especially now?
Yeah.
I mean, if we could get a few nice Wiccans to ask the Pope, to the current Pope.
I'm sure there's some for sale.
Well, there's someone who would do it just out of respect for Western culture, like Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
And they would, we could get them together and say, Dear Holy Father, We would never, of course, become Catholic because it's a crock, but we would appreciate it if you would make the Latin Mass far more available.
And there you go. And then, boom, presto.
Yep, boom. Christmas magic.
Somebody's got to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody watching, go do that.
You get a bunch, especially some of you comparative religion types, you get a bunch of these guys together and petition the Holy Father and say it's all cultural. No, he'll be impressed.
Okay.
Especially if any of you worship Pachamama.
Okay. All right. This will lead into. Wait. So, did you answer any of this about these countries? So
Yeah,
Poland,
I mentioned
Spain.
England.
Okay. So
I mentioned Poland.
Okay. So this will
Spain's in bad shape.
This will lead into a question from Theo.
Yeah.
Which is the most Catholic country in the world?
Oh.
Obviously, with the caveat that after the disaster of Vatican II, there aren't really any properly Catholic countries anymore. By most Catholic, I mean the highest proportion of the population adhering to the Catholic faith, the intensity of the devotional life, or folk religion, and the permeation of Catholicism through the country's government, official and non-official institutions. My own guess would be the Philippines or maybe Poland.
Well, of course, I'd like to say the Holy See, but the what? But the Philippines don't have a Catholic government. Poland certainly does, and it's more so than it was. Although Hungary's Orban is Calvinist, the country is getting more and more Catholic. And there's a lot of Catholic folk culture in Catholic Europe still.
Yeah.
And in Latin America and various places. But it's a weird... things are very strangely mixed today.
Yeah.
So I can't give you better. Liechtenstein, most Catholic country around.
You always say Liechtenstein.
That's not my fault. They're well run.
Just a handful of people.
So what? They're well run.
Great.
Well,
Have you ever been to Liechtenstein?
yes.
How is it?
Small.
Yeah. All right.
Very
there
nice.
should be like a floor on this. Like your country has to be over like 5 people.
It's a lot more than 5 people.
No, okay, over
it's
a million.
Bigger than it's big.
I don't think it has a million. I think it's like 100,000 or something.
You don't know though, do you?
I looked it up. I looked it up once upon a time. I'm pretty sure it's like 100,000.
How many people live in the Vatican?
500.
Yeah, you're gonna say that's not a country? Okay. No, you're the one who's attacking the Holy Father and the Holy Spirit. No, that's fine. You need some more eggnog. I think it would help.
All right. Okay, next question from Brian. Is it possible that the nature of our guardian angel or patron saint has an impact on our personality?
Oh, I would say. I also think it's maybe a bit symbiotic in the sense that as far as patron saints go, not guardian angels. Well, maybe guardian angels too, but I think we were probably drawn more to one saint than another, perhaps as much from their effort toward us as ours toward them. And Dom Granger has a very interesting theory that perhaps some of your closer friendships are somehow connected to alliances between guardian angels.
I like that thought.
Yeah. And you know how it is. I'm sure you've had the experience. Sometimes you'll run into somebody and you just like them right away. And there's absolutely no reason. You don't know the guy or the gal. And I'm not talking about love at first sight. I mean, You know what I'm saying? You just...
There's a bond.
Yeah, and you're joking together like immediately.
Yeah.
You get one another, boom, boom, boom. I think it's quite possible to set up like that Dom Granger is right. Who knows? Maybe, your guardian angel and his were in the trenches together during the Great Lucifer War, before we came into existence. Yeah. They were best buds, and oddly enough, so were you two.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Brian's last question. Charles, do you think there's more evidence for a young or an old Joseph? Is there a difference between East and West on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, in the East and also in Italy and places like that, he's considered old. Other places depict him as young. I really don't know, and I don't actually have an opinion. I have no way of knowing, and I have no opinion. Since the church has always tolerated both, I don't see any reason not to tolerate both.
No.
I mean, I'm just not what you would call doctrinaire. on this issue.
Okay, yeah.
So, I'm very much in favor of, if things work, let it go. Just,
Yeah.
Why make an issue when there's none to be had?
Yeah.
So, if you're of either opinion, for heaven's sake, stick with it. But don't be upset at other people or the other opinion.
Yeah. I'll just add, because obviously I am a fan of Emmerich, Anne Catherine Emmerich, and she speculated that it was 40. He was 40 years old, and Mary was 13. Which
would make him old compared to her, but not old to us, which kind of reconciles the two traditions. Because 40 in those days was old, and even if it hadn't been, compared to 13, it is old.
Yeah.
So it could be, they're both right. It's a breath mint and a battery acid.
Wow. Nice. Yeah.
It's a floor wax and a dessert topping. You're both right.
Wow. Okay. All right. On to the Christmas questions.
Oh, little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the starry skies go by.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
So thank you for Joshua. He's given us 6 seasonal questions. He's always coming through for those seasonal questions. He gave us a lot for Halloween as well. Thank you so much.
Happy holidays. Yes.
Oh, actually, I apologize. First Christmas question is from Kyle.
Kyle.
Here we go. Kyle
right.
says, I remember an episode some time ago where yourself and Charles brought up the Christmas classic, quote, "It's the most wonderful time of the year."
It's the most yes.
Particularly the line referring to scary ghost stories
and tales of the glories. I remember Kyle's question, yeah.
Yeah. Does Charles have a good, scary Christmas ghost story to share with us?
Well, all right. You ready?
Ready.
Well, I'll tell you. You know that I was born in New York City, and that we lived there and in Westchester County, in Mount Kisco. And that's where I spent my first few Christmases. Now, I loved Christmas in Westchester. The snow and the lights and Santa and all that sort of thing. But above all, I loved on Christmas when my grandfather would come, my mother's father. This was it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And as it happened, he would always bring really good toys. So, unfortunately, when I was about 6, we moved out to California, and I was miserable. Halloween came, and it wasn't like Halloween back home.
Mm.
Winter came, what winter? And Christmas was going to be just miserable. But then Grandpa said it was coming out. Well, I was very excited. Now, I had let him know that I wanted a Fort Apache playset, which was put out by the Louis Marx Company, nothing to do with Marxism. And it was, a fort and Indians and frontiersmen and animals, and it was great stuff. And I really wanted that. I mean, that was the hot thing that year. I wanted a Fort Apache playset. It was it. So, Grandpa was supposed to arrive the evening of Christmas Eve. Well, 7 o'clock came, 8 o'clock. It was getting later. Now, in our house, we would get the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve. We had brought it back. And the tradition was I'd go to bed, and then when I woke up, the tree was decorated. That was the general thing. Well, Dad looks at the watch. He says, "You better go to bed. Your grandpa will be here sooner or later, and we don't want everybody to run into Santa," whom I still believed in at that time.
Okay.
"So we don't want you running into Santa." I said, "All right." And I went to bed. He said, "We'll send your grandpa into you when he arrives." I said, "Great." So I go to bed. I fall asleep. Visions of sugar plums dancing in my head and all that stuff. And what should happen? But that, sure enough, I'm woken out of sleep by my grandfather. And I was just absolutely excited. Here he was in California. Unbelievable to me. So he said, I think that Santa Claus beat me here. I said, really? Well, let's go downstairs and see. So I went downstairs, and there was the tree all decorated and lit. And there was the Fort Apache playset, entirely assembled. Not in the box was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
And the thing had been entirely assembled. The Indians went around, and Grandpa looks at it, and he was smoking his pipe, and says, "Oh, you see, I think he's been here already. It's amazing. I didn't see anything on the way in," he said. "I said, Slay, I didn't see anything. But look at this." And I said, "Oh." So the two of us, got down on our knees. And the great thing about him was that he could play like that, like a boy. He was very dignified and all, but, this kind of thing, it was a lot of fun. So after a little while, he says, "Well, I think you should probably go back to bed now. It wouldn't be good, for your parents to see us up playing like this." And he put his pipe down on the mantelpiece, and he gave me a big hug. And then he said, I said, "Well, I'll see you tomorrow morning, right?" He said, "I may not be here." So I said, "All right." So I ran upstairs. I didn't quite understand what he meant, but I went to sleep. My dad wakes me up. And I said, Dad, Grandpa was here, and Santa, and we had the Fort Apache playset, and we were paying it." He says, Stop it. And I couldn't understand what he was yelling at me on Christmas Day. It was very unlike my dad. And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Just stop lying." So what do you mean? "Your grandpa's not coming. He's dead." I said, "What do you mean he's dead?" He had an accident on the way here, apparently. And he's dead. Just stop it. I said, "Dad, I'm telling you he was here." We went downstairs, and sure enough, it was the playset all set out. And there on the mantelpiece was Grandpa's pipe, which I have to this day and bring out every Christmas Eve to smoke, one time a year. Well, I found out later that there was a bit of a mystery with my grandfather's death. The car was twisted. He'd gone off and I guess in the fog, he'd gone off the freeway into the ditch and died. The car did not explode, but they found in the trunk of the mangled rental car an empty Fort Apache playset box. That's not true, by the way. None of it happened.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't say it was going to be true.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you just toyed with me in that way. I thought you even got teary.
Yeah. That's a good storyteller.
Oh my gosh.
Gets into the story.
I can't believe you did that. I feel like you cheated me or something.
It's a Christmas ghost story. They're not all true.
Oh my gosh. That was almost like the greatest real life story in the history of the world.
Well, then you would have heard about it long ago.
That's what I was ready to tell you. It's I can't believe I've never heard of this story.
Oh, well, you would have. It really happened? Oh, gosh, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
If that had really happened, that would have been like one of the formative things of my life. You've seen me on Christmas Eves. I would have brought out Grandpa's pipe and told that story.
Oh, my gosh.
You were like 4.
That's unbelievable, Charles. I can't. You had me on every syllable.
It's a good story, though, isn't it?
It was an amazing story.
That's the story. It's a Christmas ghost story.
Unbelievable.
It's a Christmas ghost story.
Oh, God.
Look. All right, stop. Do you think when Charles Dickens first told A Christmas Carol that it was true?
No.
Okay.
That's different.
No, it's not. It's a Christmas ghost story. He wanted me to tell a Christmas ghost story. I told one. The fact that I made it up is beside the point.
Oh, man.
I didn't say it was true. Did you hear me say this is a true story when I started? Like the experience I had with my cousins in the apartment, that happened.
Yeah. But I only heard that a few years ago, too. And I only heard that a few years ago. So that's why, with me, that this was within the realm of possibility, because I've also heard other crazy stories.
Well, yeah.
Only recently with you.
See, the story with because crazy things have happened. But that story, I made up about 3 years ago for the Breakfast Club Christmas party. It's true. And I got to tell you, they had the same reaction you did.
Oh, my gosh.
You talk about an annoyed bunch of people, because as soon as I told it, they were all like, and then I said, it didn't happen. You know, that story, its effect on me was a little bit like the invasion from Mars, on the radio with Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Because every time I've told that story, people get mad at me. They really do. But at any rate, that's Kyle who wanted that?
Yeah. Kyle,
you got your Christmas ghost story. And that, so you'll know, this is exactly the way they're done. M.R. James wrote a bunch of these things. And if you go online, you put in a ghost story for Christmas, BBC. You have a whole bunch of these things, those sorts of things.
You played us. You were getting teared. I was looking at you. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a moment here. And Charles is crying.
Well, you remember George Burns?
Yeah, of course.
He had a great statement. Remember, I was a comedian, and I come from a family of actors.
Yeah. So
George Burns made the comment, the key to acting is sincerity. Once you can fake that, you can fake it.
Gosh. Wow.
No, but the truth of the matter is that when you tell a story like that, if you're a good storyteller, and I'm fairly good one, if you get into the story, I mean, mutatis mutandis, and this fits because this is a Christmas Twilight Zone. There is a Twilight Zone story for Christmas called The Changing of the Guard. I tear up every time I see that bloody thing. I tear up telling it.
Yeah.
It never happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's such a good story, and it touches certain realities, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that it really didn't happen, but the principles it enunciates. I mean, and to take apart the story that I just came up with for you, I made up. And again, I made it up I didn't construct it the way I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But in looking at it and noticing how people react to it, because you're not the first one to do this, as I say. Well, the first time I told it, I had a room full of people really pissed off at me. But the reason is because it does touch certain eternal themes.
Yeah.
Which, in a sense, do happen in real life.
Yeah.
The idea of a grandfather whose love for his grandson is so great, it goes beyond the grave. Things like that have happened.
Yeah. And
even if they haven't happened quite like that, there's an appropriateness to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And also the idea of, well, Christmas magic, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
And the pathos of the son, that is the boy's father.
Yeah.
It all has a certain internal logic to it. Because you can imagine what his response would be. He wakes up his son, his father has just gotten killed. He wakes up the boy and he's babbling about having seen his dad and seen his grandfather in Santa.
Yeah.
You can imagine what he would have been like. And then contrariwise, yelling at the kid when that's completely out of character for him.
Right.
And you can imagine what the kid's reaction would have been. Well, this is the essence, dare I say it, of good storytelling.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, the only story I have similar to that always gets me, like, at the heart is, I read the passage for our Lord of the Rings episode, and it's the passage where the Witch King breaks through the gate for the first time. Yeah. And there's only, I'm getting teary.
Yeah.
But Gandalf is there alone.
Yep.
And then that encounter, and then the horns of Rohan. At the end.
And we'll see, and again, that's something that is not precisely that way, but there have been throughout history men who have stood alone at the breach against impossible, colossal odds. And there's something in that we respond to. These are, well, not to get all Jungian on you, but these are archetypes. These are they're motifs. Yeah. And we respond to them because they are the epitome of the human experience. And of course, if you've had a grandfather you loved, if you have that sense of wonder, these are things we all respond to.
Yeah. Wow. That was good, Charles. Thank you for that.
Christmas magic.
Don't taint it with that. You're doing good so far.
Well, the worst part is if you're telling the story and suddenly I can't even think of how would I get out of this? Christmas magic, that would spoil the story a lot.
Okay, on to Joshua's questions.
All right.
What are some of your favorite fantasy novels and authors?
Oh boy, this is really good stuff. I think the show has taken a pleasant turn.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my favorites. Golly Moses. Well, I have to say that with me, the three genres of fantasy, science fiction, and horror are kind of connected.
Okay.
So there's an old joke. The Last Unicorn man, Peter S. Beagle. He wrote The Last Unicorn. He and I were on a panel once years ago at a convention, and the question was determining the canon of fantasy literature. So Beagle says, he's a funny guy. I really liked him, but he says the best definition I've heard of the difference between fantasy and science fiction is that science fiction pushes you to the very edge of what's possible, and fantasy pushes you over the side.
Wow.
And then I said, and horror's waiting for you at the bottom.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Anyway, so I'm going to kind of go, I'm going to touch on a number of them. All right, so obviously Tolkien, first and foremost. But to that, I'd add C.S. Lewis, Charles Williams, in other words, the Three Inklings. Even though she's known mostly as a mystery writer, I'll include Dorothy Sayers because she does kind of go over the edge now and then. Ray Bradbury, whom I had the pleasure of knowing somewhat. Edgar Rice Burroughs. Tim Powers, who's currently running around and alive. Drew Bowling, who's only got one book out, but it's really good. Mark Sabank comes to mind. H.P. Lovecraft. August Derleth. Algernon Blackwood. M.R. James. Anthony Boucher, Arthur Machen. Definitely Arthur Machen. There's so many that I like. Ralph Adams Cram, he only did the one book, but it was very good. Montague Summers, when he was doing fiction, which he actually did. I mentioned James. Oh gosh, there's so many of them. It's and then if you take science fiction, oh heavens, Poul Anderson, and of course my good friend, the late lamented Fritz Leiber. I have to say Paul Edward Zimmer also is a good friend of mine.
Asimov?
Yeah, Asimov's okay. Yeah, a bit. Arthur C. Clarke, a bit.
Okay.
Quite a few. Everybody in the Greyhaven group.
Okay, that's a good list.
Yeah. All right.
Right. What are some of your favorite Advent traditions and feasts?
Well, those are also good questions. Well, for starters, I really like St. Andrew's Day, the national feast day of Scotland. This will shock you, ladies and gentlemen, but I do have a few drops of Scots blood. And I do love things Scottish. Which is also why I love Burns Night, obviously. But St. Nicholas's Day I'm very, very fond of, with the little gifts and so forth.
Yeah.
I'm fond of St. Lucia's Day and the candles and coffee and cookies, everything beginning with C.
Yeah.
I like the whole, in German countries, they call them the Rorate Masses. In Spanish-speaking countries, are the Misas de Gallo, the crow, so the cock crowing Mass. Yeah. The Simbang Gabi amongst the Filipinos. There's all those variations on the same theme, which are masses that begin basically at daybreak. And usually it's dark and they're all candlelit and really lovely. I like very much, of course, the Advent wreath.
Yeah.
I like putting out the nativity set without our Lord or the kings, and then on late Christmas Eve, adding the Christ child, and then at the Epiphany, bringing in the kings.
Yeah.
And stringing up the Christmas cards. I like doing that. That's my only real decoration, that and the empty creche, you know. Let me see, what else? Well, I mean, of course, keeping the fasting and abstinence, at least on the Ember days.
Yeah.
And on the trying to keep Advent to some degree anyway, like Lent.
Okay.
And I mentioned the Advent wreath, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, and above all, before I forget, Gaudete Sunday.
Yeah.
And,
wasn't that last Sunday?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And no, they're not pink vestments.
Old Rose.
Old Rose. I always remember our mutual friend of ours, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We went to Mass, he and his now wife and I. And, you know, he's very bluff and kind of a hair-trigger temper.
Yeah.
The priest comes out and he goes, "I've always looked pretty in pink."
Yeah.
You can imagine Mike wanted to launch himself.
Yeah, that's his pet peeve.
Yep. It really is.
So, yeah, we'll keep it at that for now for the interest of time. We're kind of running short on time now.
And low.
Also, we have a previous segment on this on Advent traditions that you can search Tumblr House Advent traditions or something like that. We have a very long, like 15-minute segment that was. I remember you did an incredible job.
All right, so look it up.
Yeah,
you remember better than I do. All
right. Where is Christmas still celebrated as the great Catholic feast that it is? Are there any particular places that stand out for the traditional celebrations of Christmas?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Rome,
okay.
Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Vienna, Paris, New Orleans, New York. I mean, anywhere where you can get a really extraordinary mass. You know, I mean, and of course, in New England and places like that, they have all sorts of interesting Christmas celebrations. But in terms of a Catholic feast, New York, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the northern New Mexico, the luminarias and all that kind of thing, tamales and oh golly, what are they? I can't think of the word. I'm blanked, but they have this wonderful chocolate drink they make. I can't think of the name for it, but it's really good. They serve that in tamales and sweet bread.
Okay.
It's really, really good stuff. But I mean, golly, all over Latin America, one of the things I love about this time of year, ladies and gentlemen, is that the whole world, seemingly, despite itself, despite the commercialization and all that stuff and the holiday thing, it all comes together nevertheless to welcome and to celebrate the birth of Christ in as many different ways as there are cultures. I love it. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Right? Was Saint Boniface a bigoted racist for chopping down the sacred oak and forcing all of the pagans to get Christmas trees instead? Why didn't he listen to and learn from their ancestral wisdom and just participate in their way of life, like Dances with Wolves did in America? How come someone so intolerant? How could someone so intolerant even be a saint? Did the church mess up or something? Kevin Costner, Santo Subito.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was someone saying something?
That was a mistake to do that because that is actually going to get memed. I can already see it right now where like I'm saying something and then you're going to sleep. Okay, I can already see it. Go ahead. Bring the memes.
Yeah. Meme away. The memes of production.
Okay.
Let me tell you, I'm falling asleep not because he was talking, but because this is the same old malarkey. And you know, you get it, you hear it. Every time you hear it, and you're not doing this, I realize you're having some fun.
Yeah.
But every time you hear it, the person who says it to you says it with these bright eyes, and they smiles as if it's the first time anyone ever said it. Oh boy, and they're all excited. Their little eyes glow like children getting packages opened at Christmas. What a load of garbage. You know, anyone who really believes that, just go somewhere else. You know, Go impale yourself on an oak tree. All right? And have the druids cut out your heart and surround you with mistletoe. Okay? Do that. Do that. And just shut up. All right? Yeah, happy Yule to you too. Gosh, I hate that stuff. I really, really hate it because it's based on such garbage. How... You don't even know what those religions were like. Why do you think people converted to Christianity en masse when, except for very few occasions, there was no way to make them do it? Why do you think that happened, smart people? It's because what they were worshiping before was bloody and horrible and cruel. And now, at last, they had access to truth and beauty and goodness.
Amen.
Gosh, just, go sacrifice yourself to Baal. Honestly, get it over with, Set yourself on fire. Go to hell now so you can find out what it's like later.
Okay. Was fasting and abstinence up until midnight on Christmas Eve a universal practice before Vatican II, or did it vary in some places? Does this mean that Christmas Eve dinner was shared only after midnight, as remains the custom to this day in places like the Philippines?
That's a very good question. First, when you said you were saying fasting and abstinence, but my earring is going, as you know. And what I heard was wassailing and abstinence. And I thought, if you're wassailing, you're not going to be abstaining. I don't know why you would do the two together. But anyway, the answer is, I'm not really sure. From what I can see, what I can tell, it seems to me that things were done differently in different places. Probably where they have a tradition of, like the fish dinners that the Neapolitans like, Obviously, they're abstaining, but they're not fasting.
Yeah.
But it's obviously also, it's after Vespers. So it's liturgically the next day.
Yeah.
But in a place like the Philippines, where they wouldn't eat anything at all until they came back, well, yeah, probably that's exactly what they did. They didn't, they wouldn't eat until after midnight. So my suspicion, and by the way, I'm open to correction in case anybody really does know, because I don't. My suspicion is that it was done one way in some places, another in another, because they interpreted the law differently.
Yeah.
But if anybody knows of any church-wide authoritative ruling, for heaven's sake, let me know for next year.
Okay. Well, I guess that'll do. So that'll do it for
questions. But there's more.
The book of the day.
Ooh, nifty gifty for gifties.
That's right, Vicars of Christ. And we have a question relating to Vicars of Christ from Brian.
Okay.
I'm reading Vicars of Christ, and I would like to ask Charles to explain the 3 chapters and why they were condemned by Justinian during the papacy of Pope Vigilius and revisited by his successor Pelagius. By the way, I'm reading this to my 6-year-old son who really enjoys learning about the popes.
Well, basically, they were written. They were chapters. If I remember correctly, Chalcedon, of course, condemned Monophysitism. The 3 chapters were written either for or against Nestorianism. I forget which. But they were seen as either because they were for or against Nestorianism, they were for or against Monophysitism. And so Justinian saw them as an attack on Chalcedon, and that if you went for them, you were Nestorian, or vice versa. I'm a little shaky on the details right now. But suffice to say that this also caused a schism in the West for a while. Yeah. Eventually, it was dealt with, but it further contributed to some poisoning of the relationship between East and West for a bit. It's interesting, though, that Justinian had himself crowned emperor by the Pope after having already been crowned by the Patriarch of Constantinople. When the Pope came to Constantinople, he took advantage of his presence and had him crown him.
Okay. Okay, so that'll do it for any final stuff for this episode?
Yes, I sure do.
Okay.
hours worth. No, I don't. Actually, I have something. A poem by an English author called Sir John Betjeman.
Excellent.
It's called, believe it or not, Christmas. Now, it's a long poem, so I'm reading all of it. No, I'm not. I'm only going to read the last 2 stanzas.
Okay.
But I think the other stanzas really do build up to these 2, so I recommend you read it on your own.
Okay.
But oh gosh. And is it true, this most tremendous tale of all, seen in the stained glass windows you, a baby in an ox's stall, the maker of the stars and sea, become a child on earth for me? And is it true? For if it is, no loving fingers tying strings around those tissued fripperies, the sweet and silly Christmas things, bath salts and inexpensive scent, and hideous ties so kindly meant. No love that in a family dwells, no caroling in frosty air, nor all the steeple-shaking bells can with this single truth compare, that God was man in Palestine and lives today in bread and wine.
Mm.
And so, we've covered a lot of weird territory today, taking longer than usual.
Yeah. But people, that's what they want.
Well, I notice everyone's kind of settled down around the indoor screens over there.
Yeah, I know. Finally, right?
Yeah, they're comforted, I guess. Well, I guess it's coming down to the last 72 hours before Christmas. Christmas of 2019, after which 2019 will slip away into the air. Next week will be our special New Year's edition, the way this is our Christmas edition. It is Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, and however you celebrate it, whichever customs of your particular country, or if you're an American, whatever traditions have come down to you from, your Swedish great-grandmother and your Polish cousin and, all the rest of it. Whatever it is you're doing for Christmas, however you're celebrating it, whether you're Latin Rite or Byzantine or Maronite or Syriac or Ethiopian, whatever you are, do have a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And remember us, we'll remember you. As always, the New Year dawns with 365 days of possibilities of joy and horror. And we'll face them together as we have the past years. So, God bless you all. And again, from all of us here at Tumbler House, the gang, well, maybe not the gang on the 13th floor, but certainly the secretarial pool, maintenance, gardening, security, definitely.
Mailroom clerks, yeah.
The commissariat workers.
The high level, the top floor executives.
Everybody here. And, of course, Vinny and myself. Once more.
Oh, if it's Monday.
It's off the menu.
And the soul you save.
May be your own. And wouldn't that be a Christmas gift? Merry Christmas, everyone.